Hello, everyone, and welcome to Conversations with Catherine. I am very excited to have with me Fawn Cheng. She is someone I've known for quite some time, but we have not been able to connect in quite a while, Fawn, except for Instagram, which everybody's on there, it seems. It's good to see you.
Good to see you, and I love keeping up with you on Instagram.
Thank you. Well, Fawn, by the way, is the co-founder and co-creator of One Last Thing. It's a video experience and digital life book, everything you need to share the story of your life and plan for death. You talk a lot about death, Fawn, because you're a longtime hospice volunteer, an end-of-life doula, and now an educator. You created this experience for people because of your experience with people in the end of their life. Explain what's involved in this and how it works.
Great. Okay. Well, this came about for two different reasons. One, as a hospice volunteer and as an end-of-life doula, I recognized how much is missing in the way that we currently die. And at the root of that, the reason is because we don't like to talk about death. It's an awkward topic. It's taboo in a lot of ways, and it feels very uncomfortable and scary. And as a result, we miss the opportunity to do something better and to look at our lives from a wider lens and say, if I were to have what's called a good death, what would that look like? And so that involves a lot of things. It's not only your medical plan and your medical directives or having a will and a trust, but it's also about if I were to be terminally diagnosed and I were dying, where would I want my last days to be? Would I want them in the hospital or would I want to be at home? The vast majority of people say they want to be at home, but the percentage that actually die at home is significantly small. And during that time, when you're in the end of life phase, what does that look like for you? Right? What does your room look like? Because you're going to be in your bed, right? What are the things that you want to see? If you're a gardener, don't you want to look at your garden? What kind of music? What kind of lighting? How do you want to receive guests? Because of course, your loved ones are going to want to visit you, but we all have families and we know that families can be messy, and some family members are sensitive and they have empathy and they know how long is too long. And some of our family members will talk about anything and maybe topics that you don't want to talk about when you're in your final days. And these are arguably the most important days of your life.
Mm-hmm. Well, you know, it's interesting because I have found in the last maybe 5 years that, you know, when we're younger, we start to look at, oh, we have all of this time of life. And then when you get to reach a certain age, you start looking at the clock going backwards. And it's a very interesting dynamic going on in your head. And I think it's hard, especially for my kids, when I talk about, well, I need to get this done and this in order and this. Why do you keep talking about death, Mom? Why do you think it's so uncomfortable for people to have that conversation?
I think that a lot of it is because we haven't normalized it. Right? And so it's a topic that comes up generally at the 11th hour, right? We're usually reacting to a terminal diagnosis or we're reacting to the loss of life. We're in very few circumstances are we planning ahead. I mentioned at the beginning, there was something else that motivated me before my hospice work and before becoming an end-of-life doula. And that was because I had a serious meditation practice, and the discipline that I studied incorporated death contemplation into that meditation. And there are a lot of reasons why, but one of the important reasons is that when we think about our mortality and we face the fact that we are going to die, it's the one thing that right now we can all agree on, at least. We can't agree on a lot right now, but we can all agree on the fact that our days are numbered. And when you have the courage and the time, when you invest the time to take a look at that, your life changes, right? The way that you look at your life changes. The way that you look at how you want to spend your time, with who you want to spend it, how that you want to leave your footprints in this world, that comes into a closer perspective for you. And so the idea of having a regular contemplation practice where you think about your mortality is simply so that you can stay aligned with what matters most to your heart.
I think that we become more purposeful and the things we do become more intent driven.
Yep.
Who do you think this is for? One last thing. Is it for somebody, my age? Is it for somebody younger? Is it for somebody older? Or is it for anybody?
So that's a great question, because most people tend to think, oh, I don't need to plan yet. That's for older adults. But the reality is life is fragile. You never know when something is going to happen. And when someone turns 18, their parents are not necessarily who they're, well, when someone turns 18, the medical team cannot share their information with anyone because of HIPAA. The laws of the state deem who the next person is that will get that information. Well, we all know that not all parents agree and not all parents get along. And you want to make sure, if you're 18, that the person you trust the most is able to speak on your behalf should you become incapacitated, or so that they can make decisions for you of how you want medical treatment to take place. And so I say that it's for any adult, anyone 18 or older. But if you're in your 20s and you still feel like, okay, well, this is, I still have a long time ahead of me, then ask yourself, do I have anything important of value? And we all do. We have pets, we have children, we have bills, we own something. And if you haven't written that down, and if you haven't documented what's important to you, someone is going to have to guess how to handle these things when you're gone. On average, it takes 200 hours to complete all of the affairs that someone has to manage after someone has passed. And so it makes sense to log your digital assets, to log your social media accounts and their passwords and how you want those social media accounts memorialized. And each one is different. Facebook has different rules than Twitter, Twitter has different rules than Instagram. And so it's important to pay attention to all of the things that are associated to you so that your loved ones don't have to go through the heavy responsibility of having to figure all this stuff out for you.
Well, it is a lot to think about. And, from my own personal experience, when my ex-husband passed away 6 years ago and it left me as medical power of attorney, I came to find out just how critical it is to have your affairs in order and how much of a difference it makes when that has taken place for your, family, who has to carry on with, like you said, all of the important matters of your life. You pose a very important question, and that is, how do we face death when it feels like there is so much life to live? How do you explain that to people, and what have you seen when people don't do that?
Oh gosh. So first of all, it's critical for loved ones who remain afterwards to begin the grieving process and have a way to manage the scope of the very broad and vacillating emotional landscape that is about to take place. And the longer a loved one has and the more challenges they face in managing that person's affairs afterwards, it delays and it changes the grieving process for them, and it complicates them for them. For example, one of the most difficult things that a loved one has to manage is the belongings of the person who has died. Their clothing, their photos, their computer, their phone, the furniture. Wouldn't it be nice if someone gave you a book and it said, here is what to do with all of my things? And one of the reasons it's difficult, I'm sure we can all imagine all the reasons, but it's difficult because the loved one doesn't want to dishonor their person. They don't want to get rid of the things quickly or make hasty decisions. But some those decisions are not easy to make. It's not like you can just have the right person appear and come pick it up in the right time. And so we can take the responsibility to instruct our loved ones and also help alleviate some of the guilt that they feel by saying, look, keep one or two items, hire someone to have an estate sale for you, take the proceeds and do whatever you wish to do. That way, they have some kind of permission to do so, because navigating all of those decisions in a time when you are emotionally vulnerable, exhausted, is something that is unnecessary. We don't have to die this way, and we don't have to manage things from a place of chaos and emotional vulnerability. We can do so much better. And regardless, death is always going to be awkward, and it's always going to be uncomfortable. And if you've loved someone, it will hurt when they die. It will. But if we can take if we can alleviate some of the pain and some of the difficulty and the confusion and the overwhelm, then the suffering is reduced and it's minimized. And that's why I'm so passionate about planning.
Well, one thing that one of the things that you provide with One Last Thing is these very important documents that you're talking about, but there's so much more to what this encompasses. I know upon reading, you have, videos, and you have the letter process, which just, again, going back to my own experience, my son is about to turn 18, and we had created a time capsule for him when he was for the first year of his life. Well, in that time capsule is a letter from his dad, who's not here anymore.
Goosebumps.
Yes. So his grandfather, who's not here anymore. I can't imagine not having that.
Right? It's so powerful. And especially to be able to hold with your two hands and see someone's words, and especially if it's in their handwriting, it's to see their words. It's the closest that they can get to that relationship. And so there is a chapter in One Last Thing where I take people through a writing process and I help them get centered, because it's one of those things that is so easy to put off. I put off writing my own letters. It's because it's not fun. And because we wake up every day thinking that it's not going to happen today and I can get to it tomorrow. But we tend to go in a cycle and it just doesn't get done. And these are the things that we can provide to our loved ones to pass down our wisdom, to make sure that we're leaving the legacy that we want to leave. But it also helps our loved ones grieve better.
It's so important, so very important. It's so beautiful what you're doing.
Thank you. Thank you.
So what do you want people to ultimately experience through this process as they live and still be mindful of death?
Yeah, I'm so glad you asked that question, because we thought long and hard about how we wanted to present this and put this out there. For us, death is just an invitation to live your life more intentionally and to live your life on your own terms and to do the things that you want to do. And you're never closer to the value of your life than when you're thinking about death. I mean, things get clear real fast. And so we use that as an entry point, kind of like the old business rules, start with the end in mind kind of thing, because that can help us to stop wasting time here, stop investing in this toxic relationship there, but then share our stories and share the things that matter to us, pass down our wisdom, our lessons learned, what our idea of a good life means. And so our life book, which is One Last Thing, it's an audio class that covers each of the 10 chapters, and each of the 10 chapters addresses either life, end of life, or what to do after you've died. So it's basically the book of you that you write and you fill in and you provide to a person or a couple of different people, so that when that day comes, they know exactly how to handle things. And so a lot of people think, oh, well, I'm not at that stage yet. But the fact of the matter is, Catherine, if you if your life ended today, you still have a best day, you had a worst day, you had a most challenging moment that you overcame, you were inspired by someone was incredibly kind to you. These are stories that made you who you are. And so we use those stories in the book. But as you're doing the book, you're also leaving important information that your loved ones can use to navigate your end of life.
Mm-hmm.
Like
So critical. Yeah, so special. I love the whole idea, and I was so anxious to talk to you about it. Now that you've explained how it works, what is the next step for people who would like to get involved in creating One Last Thing?
Sure. They can go to our website, which is www.onelastthing.life, and they can reach out to us. We're launching a Kickstarter campaign on the 8th of September, and that will go for 30 days. The project is completed, but we're raising funds right now because we want to put this out there to everyone. And like you said, it's a topic that people shy away from. So there's an educational process that we're heavily invested in, because unfortunately, I'm not able oftentimes to convince someone on the spot that they need to plan for their death. Mm-hmm. It feels morbid, it feels scary, it feels morose. But the more that I engage with people and the more that I'm able to educate them, they're able to see themselves in all of these different situations, and they start to see the value of it. But because this topic is even though it's not a new topic, it's the oldest topic of all, but it's a topic that is really entering the mainstream as a way of looking at wellness. Like, I like to say death is going to be the new wellness, because it can have so much impact on the way that we live and the way that our loved ones care for us and care for themselves when we're no longer here. And so they can come to our Kickstarter campaign, or if they want to order one, they can. It's $99, and they get the entire planner. It's 80 pages, and they get the video course to go along that instructs them on every single chapter. If they want to join in the Kickstarter campaign, they can get that for half price right now. And so
perfect.
That's the advantage.
Okay, once again, the website is onelastthing.life. And it's just been such a pleasure talking to you, Fawn, because like you said, it is a difficult subject for a lot of people, but it's a really important one, and something that I think we all need to talk about more often. And I'm speaking to you, as somebody who's experienced it. It makes the difference. It makes all the difference in the world for the people we leave behind.
Yes. Great. Well, thank you so much for having me.
Yes, good luck. It's good to see you.
Thanks so much for watching Conversations with Catherine. Please remember to hit the subscribe button, like, and comment while you're here. I'll see you next time.